You're listening to The Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with Lyndia Grant.
Good evening, Radio 1 listeners. Thank you for tuning in to The Lyndia Grant Show. And I wanted to introduce you to my guest today. Dr. Julianne Malvo is working at the college and wasn't able to come on. So we're going to talk about September the 11th. I have on with me right now the one and only Miss Gwen Carr out of New York. I just thought of her at the last minute to come on and talk about what's going on in September 11th. You all know her. I always have her on to talk about her son who died in the chokehold. So, Miss Carr, how are you today?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm so glad that you stepped up for me. I wanted to talk to the listeners. This would have been my September 11th special show, but I don't know what happened to the fire chief. He was confirmed, and I haven't been able to get an answer, so maybe they have some kind of emergency going on over there. So we're going to go on, and you and I can talk about what was going on 20 years ago. This is Miss Gwen Carr, and tell us where you live in New York, Miss Carr.
Yes. Well, right now I'm living in Staten Island, New York. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. And so I've been in New York all my life.
Wonderful. And so you told me earlier today that on September the 11th, you would have been working. Tell us your story.
Yes. On September the 11th, I was working for New York City Transit. In fact, I was working, my job was on the N train, which I would have been going straight through where 9/11 actually happened. But God is good. I was off that day. And when I got up early that morning because I didn't have to go to work, and I had planned, I says, well, I'm going to be at the bank when it opens. The bank opens at 9 o'clock. And then, because I had to take the bus, I wasn't driving at the time. And I says, I'll get to the bank exactly 9, and then I'll get back on the bus at 9:05 because the buses out in Staten Island, they're on a strict schedule, especially in the mornings when people are trying to get to the ferry to get to Manhattan. So my plan was working out like I, thought it should. And I got on the bus, got off the bus, went to the bank, went to the cash machine, got back on the bus. And the way I was going, it was going towards the ferry. And so the bus is crowded in the mornings going to the ferry because this is the way 80% of the people in Staten Island gets to work in Manhattan. And so the dispatcher came on the radio and said to the bus driver, do not go to the ferry. He told them where to drop all the passengers and then come back to the depot. So, of course, all the passengers was upset, saying, I got to get to work. What they mean don't go to the ferry? This was like really upsetting to them. But, no one had any details. So what we could do is follow instructions, which it didn't matter to me because I wasn't going to Manhattan that day anyway. But anyway, when I got off the bus, I heard someone say, a plane hit the World Trade Center. And I said, a plane hit the World Trade Center? Oh, no. But I thought it was like an accident, that a plane just glided into the World Trade Center. So I says, well, I'm going to go home and I'm going to look and see, what actually happened. And I got on the next bus coming back home. And first we were delayed for like 25 minutes. Because all the traffic had stopped. And then as we start to move and the dispatcher came and started talking to the bus driver says to the passengers, the World Trade Center is gone. There's no more World Trade Center. He said, what is he talking about?
Exactly.
It was like he didn't know, he got some misinformation or something. So now I just can't wait to get home so I could turn on the TV. And I did when I got home. And the first scene I seen was the World Trade Center crumbling.
Wow.
Oh, that was like a horrifying scene to me. What is this? This seems like a movie. And, they showed it over and over and over again. And I said, oh, my God, let me call my daughter, because my daughter was living out here with me, but you couldn't even get no telephone service. Everything was like it was scrambled. And if you didn't have cable, you couldn't even look at TV. You wouldn't have even seen that. And finally, my daughter, she called me. She said, oh, I ran to the school because my granddaughter was in school at the time. She said, I ran to the school to get her when I found out what was happening. I said, well, come on, get back in the house and stay here. I said, because this is horrible. Then, you could start smelling the smoke.
Oh, my gosh. That's all the way.
Yes, from that long way away, you could smell it. And it was just a horrible, horrible day. And the bad part was you couldn't hardly get in touch with anybody. When you're calling to see who's all right, or anybody that you knew who worked in that area, you just couldn't get in touch. And that was another eerie feeling, not knowing if anything had happened to people you know or your loved ones. And but then the next day I had to go, it was my day to go to work. And when we went and everybody's talking about what happened, how they had stopped the train service, they said, but the train service only stopped for 2 hours. And then they put everybody back on the train because they said those people got to get out of Manhattan. Or those people, there's no way for them to get home unless we try to help them home. And so people was terrified. They didn't want to go into Manhattan, after they heard about what happened, because they felt like it was a terrorist attack. And
you mean the train driver?
Yes, the train operator. Yes. And so anyway, but now that next day, I had to go through that same area and it was so eerie because there wasn't a lot of people on the train. And down in the subway, in the tracks, you could see the debris from the World Trade Center. The stuff just, had just flown all over, papers, all kinds of stuff. It was the most eeriest feeling I had ever felt. And, and after you start seeing pictures and start seeing what actually happened, those horrible things, why people was trying to get out or people who was trapped. And it was just like a big memorial. It was just horrible.
And then we saw on the news with people jumping out windows. It was just so much going on.
Yes, it was either go back into the fire or jump off from way up 70-something floors, which was horrible to watch that. People took pictures of that, and that just broke my heart to see that they had no choice to either go back into the flames or jump off the roof. Oh.
Wow, so it's too much. It was too much.
Hope it never, ever happens, again. And they have a memorial every year. People go back there. And fortunately, I didn't lose anybody in the World Trade disaster, but I used to work there. I used to work on the 45th floor at a place called XM World Trade Incorporation. And I was saying, wow, supposing I decided to make my career there, and I could have been there that day. Because, and all the way up on the 45th floor. And I said, God is good. It's just so happened that, he changed my path, that I did not stay there,
I'm telling you, because that building, didn't both of them come down?
Yes, one came down at 9:05. The other one, I think, came down at 9:25.
Right.
So that's why by the time that I got home, they both came down. And I said, to know a big building like that could just crumble. And I used to say, wow, sometime when I used to work there, it was a place on the 67th floor called the Skydive. And we used to go up there on payday to eat because, it was a pretty expensive place, but they had good food. So myself and the girls would say, well, on payday, we're going up there and eat. And we would. And it was like a nice, pleasant place. And, you know, just to think that all that was gone.
Okay, well, you know what, Miss Carr, thank you so much. The technician just let me know that my guest, Chief Donnelly, is actually on. So I just thank you so much for helping us out and keeping our show on task.
Yes, okay, you're welcome.
If it wasn't for my care coach at AmeriHealth, I probably wouldn't be so healthy right now. As a man, you know we don't get checkups or see a doctor regularly anyways. It's probably just a man thing because none of my partners go either. We know we should, but we just don't, and hope it works out.
So what changed for you?
AmeriHealth assigned me a care coach, somebody that gives one-on-one help, answer questions, explain things, and help set my appointments. She also helped me understand what having high blood pressure really means and ways to manage it so it doesn't kill me. It ain't nothing to play with. If you're a member of AmeriHealth, ask for a care coach. I'm glad I got mine.
At AmeriHealth, if you need a care coach, you can have one. Just call us at 1-877-759-6224 to get connected. 1-877-759-6224. This program is funded in part by the government of the District of Columbia Department of Healthcare Finance. Mayor Muriel Bowser.
I'm Latrice, the receptionist at the malpractice law firm Jack Olander and Associates. I answer the phone when you call 202-879-7777. Our experienced malpractice trial lawyers, Jack Olander, Harlow Case, Sandra Robinson, and Melissa Ray, are assisted by Dr. Robert Chabon, our of-counsel pediatrician and lawyer, and by our in-house nurse attorney consultant, Leslie Zork, who was a labor and delivery nurse for 10 years. Since Jack Olander won the first multi-million-dollar cerebral palsy case in the country, we concentrate on cerebral palsy and other major injury malpractice cases. You can reach us at 202-879-7777 or jhopc@olander.com. We'll look forward to your call.
Washington Informer religion columnist Lyndia Grant.
Who Moved My Cheese is a book about two types of people, those who accept change quickly and move on, and those who hem and haw and try to figure things out. They didn't see change coming and waste valuable time trying to figure out what happened. How did this happen to me? Let's call this group procrastinators. The lesson inside the cheese story is simple. Life is change. Brother said it best when he said, if I accept you as you are, I will make you worse. However, if I treat you as though you are what you're capable of becoming, I help you become that. We must change and keep moving. The Bible tells us to seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be open unto you, ask and it shall be given.
Read more in the religion column of the Washington Informer, an award-winning African-American newspaper. We don't report crime or gossip, just positive news. Pick up the Washington Informer or visit us online at washingtoninformer.com. Call 202-561-4100 for more information.
All right, Chief Donnelly, how are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
All right, we're talking to Chief John Donnelly Sr. He is the Fire and EMS Chief from the D.C. Department of Fire. He was nominated by Mayor Muriel Bowser on September the 4th to serve as the next Fire and Emergency Medical Chief. And I wanted him to be our guest today because I understand that Chief Donnelly can talk to us a little bit about what's been going on in America regarding September the 11th. So, Chief Donnelly, you go ahead and take it away right there.
Well, thank you for having me. We have the week of leading up to September 11th. Across the country, people are reflecting on what that means. And within the fire department, we've been reflecting on how it's changed us and what we've learned in the District of Columbia. And I think what we see is that on 9/11, I was a fire sergeant in the District of Columbia working in Anacostia, and I really didn't know anything about Osama bin Laden. and we watched those attacks. And, you know, some of our members responded to the Pentagon. Some of us stayed and protected the iconic buildings and functions of government here in the District of Columbia. But if you contrast that to, say, to January 6th, we were much better prepared. We knew who those people were. Nobody surprised us. We had a lot of resources, and we were able to do what we needed to do to help the country on that day. So I think there's a stark difference between the two events, and maybe between our level of preparedness, and a lot of that's because of the tragedy of 9/11 and the things we learned.
Okay, I see. Okay, so that's one of the questions I was going to ask. How have we improved over the years? Tell me what you were doing. You said you were working in a different capacity in Southeast, in Ward 8 at the time.
Yeah, so I was assigned to Engine 15 there by Frederick Douglass House, and I was what we call a battalion aide. I was actually off that morning. I'm taking my kids to school, and I heard about the attacks on the radio, and that first plane, and I stopped in and was watching the attacks, trying to understand what it was. And I saw the second plane hit, and I still didn't know what it was. I couldn't figure out why a plane would fly into the building. It was such a beautiful day. And when I saw the second plane hit, all I knew is I said, I need to go to work. People are going to need our help. And at that point, I didn't even know about the Pentagon. And I came back into work, and in the time it took me to get to the firehouse, our unit had gone to the Pentagon. And so I started helping bring back people to work and rotating crews to the Pentagon and doing what we call logistics, which is support. And we just stayed busy with that while that went on. It was a really scary day because we didn't know what was going on. None of us knew what was coming next.
Exactly. Even though you all were in rescue capacity, you were almost as bad as those of us at home who were watching on the news. Because nobody knew.
Yeah.
And here we lasted 20 years because President George W. Bush, I think it was the one that got us started in the war with Afghanistan because of this. And look how it's been 20 years. 20 years. Can you talk about that a little bit? I know you might not know, but just in case you got some details.
So I do know it's been 20 years. I know that a lot has changed in that 20 years. As far as the war in Afghanistan, I'm a local politician in that sense, and we've had a lot of brave men and women serve over there, and I hope that they have served to keep our country safe. I hope they have served to demonstrate the great values of the American people. I hope ultimately some great good comes out of all of that service and sacrifice.
I'm telling you that we didn't do all of this for naught. 20 whole years, my goodness gracious.
Yeah, I heard some talk show folks today in particular opining that it's been, at least we haven't had a terrorist attack based in Afghanistan in the last 20 years. And, that is true. At the very minimum, that's true. But I hope that people understand America better, maybe out of this.
Well, that'd be great. That'd be a great thing. And so we've had more done nationally, regionally. And I know being a teacher in Montgomery County Public Schools, even schools came up with ways to get kids out of schools because of September 11th. So much changed in our country because of that, didn't it?
It did. It really is. I'd say in the fire department, we've got better training. We teach our people about the risks of terrorism from the first day they come on the job. And the risk, if you think about it, isn't, unfortunately, we already have violence in our community. But the difference between the violence in our community and terrorism is that somebody wants to influence a community by an extreme act of violence. So they're even more deadly than these horrible things that we have going on. And that means that we have to respond differently. We have to be prepared for worse injuries and more injuries. So, we teach our people about that. We teach our commanders how to keep people safe and how to keep the public safe. And hopefully we can do that if we ever have to.
Oh, man, it's good. Well, I'd like to give you a chance now to just give closing comments, and I'm so grateful that you were able to come on and be our guest today.
That's great. Well, what I'd like to say is that the men and women of the D.C. Fire and EMS Department have been working extremely hard over the last 18 months, working with, to keep everybody in the community safe with COVID. Over 500 of our 2,200 employees have caught COVID. And
wow.
It's been a very long slog. I'd like everybody to know they should get vaccinated. They shouldn't be scared of the vaccine. If they are, to talk to their doctors and come to an understanding about how safe it is. That is one way our community is going to continue to be safe. Get the vaccine. Help us help you.
That's right. Well, I appreciate you for being my guest today, sir. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for what you do for the community.
All right. Thank you so much. You're listening to the Lyndia Grant Show. We've been talking to Chief John Donnelly Sr., who serves as the Fire and EMS Chief for the District of Columbia. So we have been so delighted to have him on to talk a little bit about the 20th anniversary of September the 11th. Thank you so much, Chief Don. We'll talk to you again soon.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Well, when you pick up the Washington Informer newspaper next week, you're going to see another story that I want to just briefly tell you about while I have a couple of moments. It is another eyewitness account of September the 11th from Reverend Emanuel Lipscomb. Emanuel Lipscomb is a Baptist preacher here in the District of Columbia. He was actually in New York, across the street from one of the buildings, one of the World Trade buildings, and I interviewed him, and we've been talking back and forth. And when you pick up the Washington Informer next week, you're going to be able to read his story. And there are also some TV stations that have interviewed him because they're doing some other reports, and his story is going to be included on television. So I just wanted to make sure that you all pick up the Washington Informer next week so that you can hear about it. We're going to have Tremaine Hawkins as our guest next week. I'm going to ask our technician if she'll just play a song by Tremaine Hawkins before I do my close, just to give you all a feeling about Tremaine Hawkins being our guest next week. I'm going to close now. Words, thoughts, and deeds have a boomerang effect. So be careful what you send out. Scripture says, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. So think on these things from the Lyndia Grant Show. I'm your host, Lyndia Grant. We ask that you will tune in again next week for the same time, 6 p.m., to the Lyndia Grant Show. Until then, good day.
Thank you for listening to the Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with your host, Lyndia Grant.